Today on the show, there was no red wave, there was no blue wave. But did America collectively somehow manage to win? I think maybe.
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So the election's finally over, and, well, we'll discuss the fallout of the election in just a little bit, but I gotta tell you, I got a really nice email from Jesse, who listens on KPRC in Houston, 950 AM, Houston's more stimulating talk radio. If you weren't around for the show yesterday, or if it got preempted for election coverage, as I think it might have in some of the markets, but we talked about the election, we talked about the undecided voter, and we talked about the fact that the undecided voter, well, a lot of attention has been paid to that person in the last several months. And in the past, well, you've seen the memes, you've seen the whole idea that, oh man, millions of dollars of campaign money being spent, the fate of a nation is at stake. And the deciding vote comes from someone who goes, I don't know which way I want to vote. I'm not really sure about stuff. I'm not educated. The undecided voter has been sort of regarded as a bit of a booger-eating moron in the past. And yesterday we talked on the show about the fact that the undecided voter, to me, and I think some other people too, the undecided voter is coming from a bit more of a thoughtful place at the moment. And I think that's a hopeful thing. The undecided voter this time out, as opposed to being a simpleton who doesn't care, doesn't want to know, or hasn't taken the trouble to educate themselves. The undecided voter is a thoughtful person that is all of a sudden going, you know, the answers are not immediately obvious to me. I don't feel comfortable going in and voting straight ticket whatever because that's what I've always done or that's what my family's always done. There was a great email that we got yesterday from a lifelong Republican voter who happened to be a female that was not comfortable voting in a way that would support Trump. Now, generally speaking, the midterms aren't about the president, but Donald Trump has this uncanny ability to make literally everything about him, and he did that with the midterms. Exit polls showed what we'd been talking about to be true. People were all about either helping Trump maintain power or taking it away from him in some way, shape, or form. So, we got to a place where we're thinking about these things in a slightly more advanced, less knuckle-draggy, nuanced way. We got that, like I said, email from the lifelong Republican voter who happened to be a female and a conservative, but who found themselves undecided and confused because they were looking forward to a break from all things Donald Trump. She was like, as a woman, I can't get behind this guy because of some of the things he's said and done, but I'm also not about to vote Democrat. What do I do? And it's these questions that I think will divorce us from the flawed logic of the two-party system. It's these questions that will stop us from voting straight ticket whatever and start looking a little bit more deeply into the people and the policies and how they might actually affect our daily lives. Local elections, midterms, things of that nature, there's more of a chance that they're actually going to affect you in the way your day plays out. The presidential election, that's the highest office in the land. The election that creates possibly the most powerful person on the face of planet Earth. The most powerful person on the face of planet Earth isn't going to have a whole lot to do with your day-to-day or my day-to-day. But the local, the midterms, things like that. Basically, the smaller the election, the better a chance it has of impacting you and your day and how that all shakes out. And Trump kind of robbed us of some of that because, as he always does, he makes it about himself, or he found a way to make it about himself. And that led to some confusion. That led to some conflicted types. We got another really nice email from a lifelong Democrat who said he couldn't possibly bring himself to vote conservative or Republican, but he was seriously disappointed with many aspects of his party. his trust in the Democratic Party was, like a lot of people's, damaged by how Hillary did Bernie dirty. It was damaged by the fact that he's a staunch believer in nonviolence, this guy that wrote us the email that we talked about yesterday. And too many Democratic politicians are getting too much mileage out of violent actions taken by folks like Antifa and are slow to condemn these violent actions because they know it's going to keep them alive and moving in the polls that much quicker. To have the support of the emotionally driven rabble. And when I got emails like this, man, I got to tell you, I was pretty stoked. Because the undecided voter, the fact that so much focus had been placed on the undecided voter, the fact that the undecided voter was not someone who couldn't be bothered, but now someone who really cared and realized perhaps the status quo wasn't good enough, didn't give you enough options. The undecided voter was someone who I respect a lot. Someone who's taking the time and care to recognize what's going on in the world around them and not subscribe to a simple narrative for simple people. And you know what? I don't know if you were undecided. I don't know if you are a straight ticket voter. I don't know how you voted in the elections. But I will tell you this, in the run-up to the election, there was an awful lot of back and forth that I got from listeners saying things a lot like that. I'm an undecided conservative. I'm an undecided Democrat. I have serious misgivings about some of the things going on in my parties and serious misgivings about the things that are the options that are available to me when it comes time to pull the lever of democracy. Good. You should have serious misgivings. Just question everything. And I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of people wrote me saying they were undecided. And if you and I are part of something with this show where people from both sides of the political fence, Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals alike, can come together and go, you know what, I'm really not sure about this. I used to be sure, now I'm not so sure, and I think we need to take a closer look. That to me is excellent news. But I got an email from someone who listens on 950 AM Houston, KPRC, that I'll share with you next. It's good stuff. Oh, also we'll talk about the fallout from the election. That too.
Real radio. 104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So like I said, I got an email from Jesse who listens on KPRC 950 AM in Houston, Texas. We talked a little bit about the undecided voter last night. And Jesse said, AD, thank you for making me feel it's okay to be an undecided voter. Ultimately, I made my decisions and I voted with them. The vast majority were traditional conservative votes, but I thought long and hard about each one of them, and I was genuinely perplexed and undecided. My family and my friends made me feel, when I brought this up to them, that I was a traitor to the cause. And you know what? Listening to your show made me feel like I was doing the right thing. I felt unsure of myself, but you gave me the confidence that I needed to realize that doing what was right in my heart meant doing what was right in my heart. And if that meant looking a little deeper into the candidates, as opposed to just voting a policy, as opposed to just voting a party, that was the right thing to do. Thank you so much. We need more of this. I agree. We do need more of this. And you know what? I'm happy to be the source of a bit of gumption or pride. But we talked about this last night on the show. There is that immortal line by Mike D of the Beastie Boys. This is what I've got to say to you all. Be true to yourself and you will never fall. Meaning, you know what's in your heart. You know what's right for you. We're a country that's based on the idea of individual liberty, but we've become a nation of joiners. We've become a nation of people that are expected to, in a knee-jerk reaction way, take a side without really giving it a whole lot of thought. And the more we get away from that, the more we're able to think and move and act outside of the dumbed down homogenous mass that politicians would prefer that we be, the better off we'll be as a nation. And the more accountable our politicians, our leaders, our people that are paid off of our hard-earned tax dollars will be. So never feel bad about thinking twice with regard to your vote. Your thought that you put into it is part of what makes your vote matter. No matter how you're voting. But people did vote. Despite all the hype, and I thought this was kind of cool. Despite all the hype over this year's midterm elections, the takeaways didn't involve a red wave or a blue wave. The takeaway had sort of wins on both sides for all concerned. The takeaway is both good, yet sort of unsatisfying for a lot of people. Both Democrats and Republicans are declaring victory. And you know what? Both of them have reasons in different places to declare victory. They're both kind of right, they're both kind of wrong. The much talked about blue wave happened, but only in the House races. Democrats not only took control of the House of Representatives, but they gained at least 24 seats. And by the way, I think at the time we're talking about this, some of the races are still not settled. But they lost ground. They weren't able to take the Senate. They even lost some ground. For Republicans, President Trump was not the total kryptonite that some people thought he would be. The Republicans did well in their Senate races, and they also won some close, important governor's races, particularly in Florida, as you know, if you listen on Real Radio 104.1 or Real Radio in Palm Beach, and in Ohio as well. So we're in a situation now where both sides can look at the glasses half empty or half full. The only real significant difference is that control of Congress is split, meaning that they're going to get even less done, if that's possible. How exciting. Not all the races, like I said, are 100% settled, but when I last checked in, the House had 200, and I'm sure this has changed at this stage of the game, but when I last checked in, the House had 222 Democrats and 199 Republicans, with 14 still outstanding. The Senate had 51 Republicans and 45 Democrats, with 4 still outstanding. Now, like I said, this is the last time I checked, and who knows what time you're listening to this, in what time zone, what state, what time this is aired on the station that it's on in your neighborhood. So don't quote me on these things, but that was last time I checked. As for the governors, before the election, there were 33 Republican governors and 16 Democrats, with 1 independent after the election. There are 25 Republicans, 21 Democrats, and 4 at this stage in the game still to be determined. This is an interesting one. As you know, if you happen to be in Florida, Florida passed an amendment to restore voting rights for 1.5 million former felons who have served their sentence, including parole and probation, with the exception of those convicted of murder and sexual offenses. By the way, the folks in Florida, I don't know if you're aware of this in Florida, but Florida's elections were crazy to begin with. Maybe if you live there, you're sort of, you're used to it at this stage in the game. But, yeah. Interesting times in Florida. And you know what? Florida first to the party on this one. If you're one of our listeners in Florida, you might feel elated or ashamed. I don't know. But it is significant. Colorado elected America's first openly gay governor, Jared Polis. It's great. Here's the thing. I love how people are trumpeting about it being a significant change in the status quo. But it's always good to get the first one of these things out of the way. Because you know what? Whether a person is gay or straight should make absolutely no difference in terms of their professional abilities to do their job. People shouldn't perceive that there is a difference in their professional abilities to do their job. That includes everything from mopping a floor to being governor. And so I don't like to make a big deal of it when someone's the first gay something or other. Someone's the first differently abled something or other. People are people. If you're like me, if you've listened to this show for any length of time, there's a very good chance that there's not really a prejudicial bone in your body. And the idea that anybody would hold a person's race or sexuality or religion against them when it came to any kind of job, whether it be that mopper of floors or that governor of Colorado, is ridiculous. So, I guess we got that one out of the way. And now we can just continue as we've begun, treating people as people, making employment, elections, things like that, merit-based as opposed to identity-based. But there were a lot of firsts. Palestinian American Rashida Tlaib, I think is how you pronounce her last name. I don't want to butcher anyone's last name. But her and Somali American Ethan Omar in Minnesota have become the first Muslim women elected to the U.S. Congress. And look, I don't like the idea of identity politics. People are like, yeah, right on. Someone with a different religion is up in the game. Well, religion shouldn't enter into it. I'm glad people were willing to set their prejudices aside and do something like this. But quite frankly, I don't care about a person's religion. I care about their ability to lead and get jobs done that we as the taxpayers demand they do. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York became the youngest woman ever elected to Congress. She turned 29 last month. Believe it or not, there's never been a lesbian Native American in Congress. Sharice Davids changed that with her win in Kansas. There wasn't even a Native American woman, and now there's two. Deb Haaland is the other one, thanks to her win in New Mexico. And Mitt Romney's back on the scene. He won his Senate race in Utah. He's succeeding Orrin Hatch, who's retiring. Oh, and remember Kim Davis, the Kentucky clerk that we only knew about because she refused to issue same-sex marriage licenses? She lost her re-election bid. And speaking of things you probably don't care about, Democrat Lou Leon Guerrero was elected the first female governor of Guam, which is a U.S. territory. Now you know, a lot of firsts.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radioland. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
So yeah, I got to tell you, as someone who doesn't necessarily have a dog in the race in terms of being someone who doesn't declare a political allegiance to a particular political party, I sort of like how things shook out last night. There was no real blue wave. There was no red wave. Despite all the hype over this year's midterm election, the takeaway was, well, not inconclusive, but to a lot of people who thought that this was their moment, a little unsatisfying. The blue wave, like we said, only happened in the House races. Democrats not only took control of the House of Representatives, but they gained at least 24 seats. However, they weren't able to take the Senate, and they even lost some ground. President Trump did that thing where he made it all about him. He was saying, hey, we're good to go. We still got the Senate. And this is why I'll never be successful, because apparently it takes this sort of thing. to get ahead in the game. And I just don't have the ability to make everything about myself and figure out how everything in the world can in some way, shape, or form make me look good at what I do, or special, or smart, or whatever the case may be. Donald Trump found an angle with the Republican losses. He spent a good chunk of the airtime he was afforded, which was plenty today, going, oh yeah, all the Republicans that lost is because they didn't accept the embrace. And he used that word numerous times. He's like, they didn't accept the embrace. They got no embrace. There was no embrace. They could have done well. Were they willing to accept the embrace? But they didn't, so they lost. So it was basically a victory. He managed to find a way to turn the loss of Republican politicians into a victory lap for himself, saying, oh yeah, so-and-so, they're Trumpers. This person, not a Trumper. Oh, look, you lost. Shame. Should have accepted the embrace. I can't do that. I can't find a spin on everything that happens all the time and make it reflect well on me. Maybe I should learn how to do that for my next contract negotiation. I don't know. I do know this, though. It's remarkable to be able to turn your party's losses into a moment for you to rah-rah for yourself. I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing. It's a talent. A talent that is one I do not have. But anywho, like we were saying, there was no real definitive yes moment. I kind of liked how it all went. I kind of like the fact that there was no red wave. There was no blue wave. Democrats have the House. Republicans have the Senate. Lots of people got lots of little victories. Now, like you and I were talking about earlier, I don't believe in the idea of identity politics. Whether someone is Muslim or female or gay, the fact that they are any of these things in no way, shape, or form enters into it when I'm considering whether or not they're going to be good at their job. But for a lot of folks, the fact that there's now a gay governor of Colorado, the fact that there are Muslim women elected to Congress, the fact that there is a Native American woman in Congress, who happens to be, I think, an MMA fighter as well, made of stern stuff. These are all important. And look, maybe I'm talking from a perspective of white male privilege. I'm a white male. I'm a white straight male. Since the dawn of time, I've been able to look at politicians and say, oh, there's people there that share my experience, that can speak for me. As a white male, if we're playing the identity politics game, I've always felt as though there's always been a reason for me to feel as though I've got representation and a voice. I never have felt like that because I have a fundamental distrust of politicians in general. I think there are a rare handful that are genuinely public servants, and the rest of them are just sort of folks that were not that interesting. Couldn't write anything more interesting than policy. Failed as a rock star, failed as some sort of media type. But Mike Pence, what did he call himself? When he used to be a talk radio guy, Mike Pence called himself Rush Limbaugh on decaf. Couldn't really make that stick. And, well, wound up being vice president. If Mike Pence was successful at talk radio to the level of a Rush Limbaugh, would he be vice president of these United States of America? I don't think for a second he would have any interest in doing that. That's most politicians to me. People that weren't necessarily up in the game enough as a creative person, as an entertainer, as someone with a drive to be notorious or well-known or famous. The vast majority of politicians are just looking to be famous and dandy. Like Amos and Andy, as the old rhyme goes. But not so much on the whole serving the public part. So, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I am a white male. There are plenty of white straight males that have been in the world of politics for a very long time. There's a lot of people who will say, hey, AD, you should feel like you've got someone in there, no matter what the situation is, that has your back because you're a white male. Your experience is well represented in the world of politics. And I get that. I do understand that. But I don't trust them. I don't feel like they speak for me. I feel like the vast majority of politicians are not there to make sure I feel as though my voice is heard, or your voice for that matter. But I do understand that it's a significant win for a lot of people to have these sort of moments of identity politics where they go, oh, I'm represented. There's someone there that understands my experience and my voice. So for that, I'm thankful. And I hope that now we've had these firsts, they can stop being an issue. And the best person for the job can do the job, regardless of their religion or their sexuality or their color of skin, which is the way it should be. But I kind of like how everything played out. Like I said, I don't have a particular allegiance to a particular political party, so I wasn't hoping for a red wave or a blue wave. But I do like the idea of balance. The idea of things being all one way is a corrupting force. When you don't have people in there questioning you, keeping you honest, you're not going to do the best job. Look, I love my bosses. I've got a bazillion of them. I love my boss that I work with and for every single day. Wouldn't have any other boss. She's the greatest. Absolutely love her. She's fantastic. But when she goes away for a week, I got to tell you, I breathe a bit of a sigh of relief. And I don't feel like I have to be quite as buttoned up because I know she's not necessarily going to be there calling me on my stuff the way she usually does. I still do just as good of a job, I think. But I definitely enjoy an opportunity to relax without as much of a sense of accountability. Everybody likes it when their boss isn't in the office or isn't in their place of work. You love it. Don't deny it. But things probably wouldn't keep going, keep working, if you existed without accountability. And that's why I don't think a red wave or a blue wave or whatever color wave people were looking for would have really served anyone all that well. Because when you don't have someone in there going, hey man, what are you trying to pull? Did you forget to do this? I think you forgot to do this. When you don't have someone questioning you, when you don't have someone forcing you to be accountable, and really, that should be able... The sense of accountability politicians feel should come from us, but they don't feel that. Sadly, we live in this weird world where we cut the check, they take the money out of our paycheck that they live off of, yet we can't get them on the horn when we need them to. The sense of accountability should come from us, the voters. And not just during election time. But, sadly, the sense of accountability in these situations tends to come from the opposition. And so, like I said, I like the fact that there's no red wave or no blue wave. I like the fact that politicians had to work hard to get where they are, and they're going to have to continue to work hard to stay there. I like the fact that they've got enough of their opposition looking over their shoulders to keep them honest. I think we've arrived, albeit in a strange way, at a place of balance. And for that, if you're like me, you're thankful.
Now, more AD on the radio.
So you and I will get into the events of today in our segment My Witness News in just a little bit. But before we do, if you're like a lot of people, you notice that there's a bit of a confusing way that propositions are written on voting ballots. And you know who else noticed? The great Kyle Cease. Have a listen to this.
You guys are so fun. I think the problem is this country's split right now. I think if you're a Republican, well, you're wrong. But I think if you're a Republican... I'm just kidding. I own like 4 Republicans in case 3 break down. But I think if you're a Republican, that's awesome. I think if you're a Democrat, that's awesome. I just think we need to vote. We need to vote a lot. My favorite thing to vote on, thank you, both of you. My favorite thing to vote on are the initiatives, you know, the propositions, where you'll see an argument for one side and you're like, that's a good point. And then you'll see an argument for the other side and you're like, that's a good point too. And you never know which way to vote. I think we need a few that it's just obvious which way to vote right off the bat. Like, wouldn't it be cool if it was like, Proposition 97, should we continue to not eat babies? Right there, you'd be like, hell yeah, I don't want to eat babies, you know? I don't have time, they're not delicious. It would be eating babies, and that's weird to me. So there's 3 reasons that I've come up with that I'm voting no. But the way they phrase those things, when you get to the voting booth, you don't know which way you're voting, because it's always, should we not eat unbabies not on this not day? And you're just sitting there like, I don't want to eat babies, you know? I don't have time, they're not delicious. Remember my reasons? I had like 3. So you vote no on it, and then it's on the news the next day. Well, 74% of Americans decided it's time to eat babies. What the hell's wrong with you? This is my new position. I speak like this.
Alrighty then. In just a little bit, because we tackle big and important issues around here, you and I will talk about the fact that John Stamos almost pleasured himself to himself in Fuller House when it came time to make a donation at a fertility clinic. Right now, though, what is going on in the world? So many things. Congratulations to Ariana Grande, who was named Billboard's Woman of the Year. Or as Pete Davidson puts it to anyone who would listen, I used to date Billboard's Woman of the Year. Pharrell Williams, that guy from the Neptunes, and what's the show that he's a TV judge on? The Voice? That Pharrell Williams wants Donald Trump to stop playing his song Happy at rallies. Why doesn't Trump just use Pink Floyd so he can tell supporters that he finally gave them the wall? By the way, I'm still maintaining that brick 1 of that wall will never be put in place. This will not be a thing that happens during Donald Trump's presidency. I'm just saying. I am all in favor of... Look, the idea of the wall was such a galvanizing thing for Trump voters. But it was so weird to me because I was like, the expense is absolutely freaking astronomical. And do we need tighter security at our borders? Yeah, we do. Am I against immigrants? Absolutely not. We are a nation of immigrants. But, you know, coming in legally has always been a good idea. And it's so weird. I've said this to a couple people recently, and they're like, oh, yeah, you're one of those. Nice. Real nice. But it's at that stage in the game, I like to point out the fact that, you know who was viewed as the deporter-in-chief by a lot of people? That would have been Obama. So, it's weird. It's weird. Donald Trump and Obama actually stood for a lot of the same things when it came to control of the borders, just Donald Trump expresses it in a much more ham-fisted, let's build a wall kind of way, and just that wall will never be built. Never be built. Anyways, that's a conversation for a different day. However, we must soldier on with the matters at hand. Like this, Kanye West says McDonald's is his favorite restaurant. Yeah, Kanye West has gone on the record saying that McDonald's is his favorite restaurant. Interesting. Based on the work that made Kim Kardashian famous, I would say it looks like she's a huge fan of In-N-Out. Oh, speaking of the Kardashian family, Lamar Odom, Khloe Kardashian's ex-husband. Lamar Odom turned 39 yesterday. He's only 39? That guy has been doing some hard living. Wow. Lamar Odom turned 39 yesterday. He celebrated at his favorite restaurant, Crack Whore Barrel. Beyonce endorsed Democrat Beto O'Rourke in the Texas Senate race. It did not bring him victory, but it was a notable one. And you know what? Wow. How quickly did the whole Beto O'Rourke phenomena transition from, hey, Beto for Senate to, you know what? Doesn't matter. Now he's free to run for president. There's a very, very real conversation that is happening. What do you reckon? If you're a Beto fan, would you vote for him? Do you think he's your best bet at securing yourself that sweet, sweet political victory that you're looking for in the year 2020? I'm curious. Tweet me at ADSXE is where you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, or you can email me ad@iheartradio.com. If you're a Beto O'Rourke supporter, and it's interesting because his campaign, while it was for the Texas Senate, really spilled over into other parts of the country, which is a little strange. Hollywood celebrities were all about Beto. But, yeah. Beyonce endorsed Democrat Beto O'Rourke in the Texas Senate race on Instagram. And it makes sense to me. Naturally, Beyonce likes politicians who are to the left. See what I did there? You're welcome. Women put "I voted" stickers on Susan B. Anthony's grave yesterday. It's their way of saying thank you for women's suffrage. Unless it was Betty White, then it was her way of saying, hi, old roommate. Oh, man. This is gnarly. Do you fly a lot? What do you think the most disgusting thing you've ever had to deal with on a flight is? Because whatever that is, a Delta passenger can now top it. A Delta passenger flying from Atlanta to Miami was forced to sit in a seat stained with human feces. Yeah, Delta passenger was forced to sit in a seat stained with human feces. Or, as it's known on Spirit Airlines, upgrade! A man fell from the ceiling of an Alabama Waffle House. That's news. Fortunately, his fall was broken by a nice soft layer of people from Alabama. All right, then. What do we have time to get to today? I want to talk about John Stamos pleasuring himself to John Stamos. But I think we have... Well, okay. Did you catch the celebrity election fallout? Taylor Swift got a lot of attention for inserting herself into politics, and she posted an Instagram story where she encouraged people to vote and warned everyone not to underestimate the power of young voters. She previously endorsed two Democratic candidates in her home state of Tennessee, Representative Jim Cooper and Senate candidate Phil Bredesen. Cooper was reelected. Bredesen lost to Marsha Blackburn, which inspired Fox News host Laura Ingraham to taunt her on Twitter, saying, hey, Taylor haters gonna hate, #shake it off. Speaking of failed celebrity endorsements, Oprah literally went door to door to campaign for Democrat Stacey Abrams, who was running for governor in Georgia, but it appears that she lost to Republican Brian Kemp. When I last checked, it still wasn't 100% settled, but it wasn't looking good for her. And of course, the celebrities came out in droves to support Democrat Beto O'Rourke, who was trying to unseat Ted Cruz as a senator from Texas, but Ted held on to his job, even though it was closer than some people expected. Demi Lovato just got out of rehab, but that didn't keep her from the polls, and then posting a photo on social media. Beyonce, who, like we said, is from Texas, came out as a Beto supporter at the very last moment. Too little too late, I guess. All right, John Stamos. Well, we all know John Stamos is undeniably handsome. But is he sexy enough to turn himself on? Well, not anymore. On the new E! Talk show Busy Tonight, John told Busy Phillips a story about when he and his wife were trying to conceive. John needed to go to a fertility clinic and provide a sample, so they sent him into a room with some, materials that might help him, produce. And he said, I went into this little room and they said, if you need any stimulation or whatever, there's videos and there's a TV here. So I turned on the TV and it's Fuller House. My hand to God. You have to admit, it's a decent prank. And if you were working at a fertility clinic when John Stamos walked in, you probably would have done it too. I know I would have. But it sounds like John resisted the urge to let Uncle Jesse take him to Nirvana, saying, quote, if I'm going to do that to myself, it'll be my old self, not the new one. True story. Have an awesome night.